Welcome, Fins faithful. We're back. Jason Sarney and I are back. The coaching search took a little bit of a turn here with Sean McDermott, the latest, now fired. League-wide picture shift a little bit. The Dolphins may be closer as soon as tonight, making a head coach decision. They're closer than they were a few days ago. And right now, it's starting to feel like it's Jeff Hafley's job to lose. So the big question becomes this: does he leave the building tonight, or does the McDermott firing completely change the landscape? Let's break it down. What changed? What mattered? What's next? Let's dive into it. Sarney, it's been a long few weeks, man. My co-pilot calls. We are back. We're back to get our feet back in the action here. I'm so glad to be back with you. How are you, man? Happy birthday yesterday, Jason Sarney.
Thank you. Appreciate it, George. And I'm glad you are feeling better. I know you were dealing with a little bit of the flu, and it was a beast of a strain, man. My dad had the flu, so I know what you were going through. Feel bad for you, but great to be back, and thanks for everybody watching on Martin Luther King Day, and happy everybody.
Happy Martin Luther King Day. Well, Sarney, let's kind of get into it. I mentioned it. Sean McDermott fired Jeff Hafley coming in today. He's got interviews, I believe, with the Titans tomorrow. You know how that works. Will they let him get out of the building? Your thoughts right now on the landscaping on the head coach position as we stand currently right now on the latest?
If you look around the social media world and the media landscape, it seems like Jeff Hafley is the front runner at the moment. Obviously, with John Eric Sullivan having the connection there from their Green Bay days, that's kind of the likely hire. Now, obviously, the Dolphins have gone through the process and have interviewed, whether virtually or live, a ton of candidates. Now, Hafley also, as you mentioned, has some other interviews lined up. Generally, the rule of thumb is when you're interviewing, time is always the enemy. And I say that knowing that that's what I basically do for a living, just not in football hiring, really all other aspects of work. So when a candidate is going on in for an interview, as a recruiter such as myself, you want the deal done in the chair. You literally just want it taken care of and done. In this sense, I would love, as a football fan and a Dolphin fan, for them to really go through the process, interview a number of people. And for Hafley's sake, go on the other interviews. Why not? But with Sullivan as the GM in Miami, it would not shock me, nor really anybody, if they lock the doors, so to speak, and not allow him to leave the building. Sometimes we joke around without a signed contract. So, yeah, we're probably 8-9 hours away from either official news that it's Hafley, or becomes a little bit more of an open search with him, potentially going elsewhere, and Dolphins interviewing some other folks. So we'll see how it plays out in the next half a day here.
Yeah, thanks everybody in the chat. Finn Stanza, what's up? Bobby Fins Talk over at the Fins Talk Sports Network. Thank you, man. I'm feeling better. Still fighting through it, but yeah, feeling better. Jay, B-Rob, everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you're coming over to YouTube here. Smash that like button, hit that little subscribe. We're back. We've been gone for a few weeks. I've done a few videos solo, but it's good to be back. Thank you guys. All right. So they're completing the Rooney Rule. I think Kelvin Shepard completed his interview, and Patrick Graham, I believe, is in there today, right? So that's kind of, you don't want to be rude, but that's kind of like the due diligence you have to do to the next step here. Now, I've seen a lot of people. I want to get into this because this is kind of irking me. I've seen a lot of reaction online where people already hating the idea of Jeff Hafley as a hire based on one game. Look at Chris Shula. Didn't want him the week before because of the way their defense performed. This week, the defense performed good. He's now the best candidate out there. Based on one game or how things look on surface is kind of ridiculous. There's much more that goes into being a head coach than a single result or snapshot moment, Jason. We should have learned this from Mike. It's how you lead men, how you build and manage a coaching staff, how you communicate with the front office, whether you can establish the culture that the general manager wants, and whether you have accountability in the organization. Honestly, again, we should have learned from Mike McDaniel. Let's go back to all the hires we had in the day after the tweets. Oh, man, the best hire, McDaniel. I even remember Philbin, Gase. So here's what the Dolphin fans need to understand. The most important hire has already been made. This ultimately, Jason, comes down to whether John Eric Sullivan can identify and draft the right guys year after year after year. Yes, the head coach matters, but to me, Jason, the most critical decision for this franchise already is in place. And look, if this is the guy he trusts, we got to trust the process, right? Especially, Jason, when you consider where this team is headed in 2026, they're going to be younger. There's a lot of dead cap space. Some experienced coaches like Harbaugh, Stefanski, they don't want this situation. There are better jobs out there, and that's the truth. Sure, Harbaugh would have been nice, but this search was always, to me, unless, again, we'll talk about McDermott changes things, kind of always was going to be a first-time head coach. Look at all the coaches that are out there now. They're all first-time head coaches. And Hafley does have head coaching experience at Boston College. Now, will it work out? Only time will tell. I mean, it's no guarantee he gets the job. It looks that way. But I don't know. Judging these candidates on one game or a personal preference, to me, it's just a lazy analyst, Jason. It's whether it's the last name of Shula or this or that, we don't know who the right guy is to the right guys here. And that's just the truth, right?
It's the absolute truth, and it's actually comical. And basically, you look around Twitter, you look around social media, and quite frankly, there's a lot of trash and garbage out there. I mean, yes. from a take standpoint or from keyboard warriors behind their phones or their actual computers making the takes. Now, let me just tell you something. If you remember 2007, the Dolphins were a one-win team on the strength of Greg Camarillo running an overtime play back for a score. Outside of that, they were not going to win a game. Cam Cameron was the coach. If you think that Jeff Hafley in the early part of his career ascending is anything like Cam Cameron, who is an elder statesman declining in his career, you're nuts. You're nuts. I mean, Hafley is Cam Cameron 2.0. If you're saying that, it's a lazy trash take. Cameron, a quarterback, offensive guy, Hafley, a defensive guy. This is nuts. The Chris Shula situation. Look, I understand that the last name being Shula probably spikes the affinity of him from a lot of Dolphin fans. Sure, I tweeted this a little earlier. I'll say it again. If his name was Chris Papagiorgio, the defense would have done the same exact thing against the Bears last night, and he still would have been the candidate that he is right now. And another thing, the Anthony Campanelli thing. If you literally think that he is just a meathead who yells, you're a fool. A lot of things have happened in the last couple of months and weeks and days with me where I've just kind of thrown a lot of things against the wall and say, you know what? I don't care anymore. If you're calling Anthony Campanelli a meathead who just yells, you're an absolute fool. Do more homework, do more due diligence, and stop with these lazy takes about Joe Philbin 2.0. Do you know what was going on in Joe Philbin's life when he was hired? I don't mean to bring that up, but do some research. The man was broken because of a horrible family tragedy. I don't know if that exactly translated to what he was doing on the field, but do some research, all right? And you can't compare offensive guys to defensive guys just because, it's a first-time hire, they're going to be the exact same guy. It's enough already. So you got to go into this, as you said, George, it was going to be a first-time hire, probably. Harbaugh wasn't coming on into this mess. Tomlin's taking a year off. Stefanski had a better opportunity, with Atlanta. So you know what? Guys like Saleh, it would be solid, but he had that experience. It's going to be a first-time hire. We pretty much have resorted ourselves to that. So you know what? I'm a benefit of the doubt guy. I'm going to talk up what I like about a person instead of fading a person for no good reason. If I don't talk about a person, that's like fading them. I'm not going to come out and say reasons why I don't like a person before they get actual evidence on why they should either be liked or disliked. I'm going to find out what I know about a person and talk about their positives. And then if I have to retract because of what we're seeing, sure, I was wrong. But I would rather be wrong on liking someone than be wrong on fading someone. So let's take a little pause before we're calling people 2.0 of Cam Cameron, who was the worst coach the Dolphins have ever had. And if you know anything about that year, players would laugh at him. Players would joke around on how bad of a motivator and a player guy he was. He was coaching from the top. He was not in it with his guys. He was not a leader of men. It was a joke. So if you're really comparing him to that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with you. And the thing with Hafley and with all these coaches. Look at the coaches in the playoffs. Sean McVay, first-time head coach. The Seattle coach, McDermott, first-time head coach. Who am I missing here? Who's Patriots? Or
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson. What is the biggest factor that we're not talking about? Alpha, leader of men. It's not the best coordinator on the best number one offense or defense. We've tried that before. That doesn't translate all the time. There's a lot more that goes into an organization. Who's calling the plays? Who's responsible for, Eric Bieniemy. Remember Eric Bieniemy all those years? Yeah, there's a reason why he didn't get a head coaching job. Jeff Hafley, I'm not defending him, and I don't know if he'll be the right guy or if he's going to be the guy, right? Thank you, Finn Stanza. 6 out of the 8 are first-time head coaches. Excuse me. So my point is that, as I digress, you need an alpha leader of men. That's the most important quality, and you got to identify. Jeff Hafley has been a finalist for all the jobs he's interviewed for. He obviously does something right. And again, you haven't discussed John Eric Sullivan hire, on the show here, but this guy's impressive to me. And I told you this was the most important hire. And if this is the guy he trusts, and it's going to be hand in hand, and it's going to be leading in cohesion, and it's going to be help the organization, and they know each other, so be it. I don't know. I don't know, because Chris Shula, now it would have been a fun hire, right? It would have been a fun hire. But I don't know, because of the last name. I'll be honest, I saw a 2-minute clip of Chris Shula. I was like, I don't know if he's alpha enough. Like it changed my opinion a little bit, right? Like, I look for these kind of little things. And for me, I hear Jeff Hafley speak, and I understand why. He's an impressive guy, the way he speaks. He was a head coach at Boston College. Look at Boston College. People say, he wasn't successful at Boston College. Bill O'Brien, pretty good head coach in the NFL, right? You would say at points, 2-10 last year at Boston College. 2-10. So Hafley was, they took him to a bowl game. They won 6 games. They did win 3 this last year. But it's hard to win there, right? And look at their career. They won 4 games in 2012, 2, 7, 7, 3. So this is not a program. This is not the University of Miami. So Jeff Hafley at Boston College, Bill O'Brien, who's coaching the NFL, 2 wins. And Jeff Hafley's probably had the best recruiting classes at Boston College. So look, I'm not defending the guy. It's the whole notion I'm seeing on Twitter, as we've been taking a back seat for the last 2 weeks here, in this whole thing of people, watching one game and all of a sudden this guy moves the needle. Clint Kubiak, maybe he'll be a good coach, but he's not a better coach because they beat the 49ers. They blew out the 49ers. Doesn't make him a better candidate. It's a lot more that goes into it, and people don't realize that, Jason, right? It's the biggest quality of what we learned from Mike is we don't need the genius. We need a guy who can lead a group of 53 men in one direction, that can lead the offense, the defense, control. Look at Mike Vrabel, why he's so good. He's got Stephon Diggs, who's got so many off-the-field problems, buying into him like a father figure. These are the things that head coaches needed. People are not identifying and understanding the qualities that make a head coach. A lot of people know offense. A lot of people know defense. A lot of coaches know X's and O's. It's other things, Jason, right? Like, people are missing the boat on that, I think.
I see a lot of people quoting the leader of men situation.
Brian Flores, you also have to be a communicator, too. So Brian Flores just didn't know how to treat people. So that's another part. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to – listen, I don't really like to do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to read directly from a direct message that I received back in 2023. I sent this to George a couple of nights ago. I'm going to give you an example of what a leader of men do. This is an exchange between a head coaching candidate who was in Miami in 2023. Let's think about it. And a former linebacker who's not in Miami anymore. Again, let's think about it. The coach mentions to the player, you're improving every day because of how much you care about being great. You're doing a lot of great stuff. What can I help you more with, in your opinion, to make anything easier? The player says what he says, and he says that, are you free around 9:30 tomorrow morning? Coach says, have to work out. Let's make it 10. I love coaching you, man. You get better every day, bro. I will get there by 9 tomorrow. We can get more time in. Basically, this is a little bit of a microcosm of a person, a coach, going extra to coach up a player who that coach has a feeling is going to have a career year or has potential to maximize his skill sets. So if you haven't figured it out yet, Anthony Campanelli is reaching out to his players off hours or different hours when they're not in the building to say, come on in the building and we're going to work more. All right. And that player happened to have become an all-pro second teamer on an NFC North team. So if you haven't figured that out yet, real easy to really decipher what I'm trying to tell you. That was a linebacker coach then. Also, that linebacker coach was given the reins on weekly team meetings to motivate the entire group of men. Now, it wasn't a running back coach. It wasn't a defensive line coach. It wasn't a DB coach. It wasn't an assistant head coach who's the tight end coach. It was a linebacker coach whose father was a coach, who's getting talked up by Jeff Hafley as being a future star. So, Jeff Hafley, who worked with Anthony Campanelli, to me, it's interesting on how those guys can be kind of similar in motivating leader of men, same kind of Jersey type born and bred. So to me, that's interesting. So 3 years ago, I knew of a candidate who could be a potential star. Is Anthony Campanelli going to be the coach of the Miami Dolphins? Probably not. But he worked on a defensive staff with Jeff Hafley. So to me, there's a little bit of intrigue in Hafley to at least not call him a 2.0 of Joe Philbin and Cam Cameron. And another thing with John Eric Sullivan's obviously interviewing and talking about what he thinks his plans are for a head coach. Obviously, Hafley was either mentioned or insinuated as a candidate of his. If Miami didn't like that, probably they wouldn't have hired him to be the GM. So I see a lot of people calling them buddies. Now, I also see in GMs when they get hired bringing their people, not buddies. So all of a sudden it's a buddy-buddy situation when a GM wants to go in the low-hanging fruit of a guy that he's worked with. So John Eric Sullivan has worked in Green Bay with this gentleman for a few years and wants to put his first building block of his tenure in Miami on him, doesn't that exude confidence? Doesn't that tell anyone that John Eric Sullivan's reputation is on the line immediately to hire a guy that he has direct knowledge about? I mean, what are we doing here, folks? And I'm realizing that we all haven't seen a playoff win in 25 years, quarter of a century. A lot of Dolphin fans out there weren't even born at this point. I get that. I barely was able to drive. I just celebrated my 45th birthday yesterday, So it's been a while, but at the same time, what are we complaining about? John Eric Sullivan was hired to be the general manager of a football team. His first and probably most important role and task is to find the right head coach. So if Hafley was 2.0 of the two worst coaches pretty much in Dolphin history, why would he be even considered? That's not the case, folks. There obviously is enough smoke where there could be some fire with Jeff Hafley. It doesn't sound like a buddy system as much as it sounds like he could literally be, in John Eric Sullivan's mind, the lead guy. Why would they have virtually interviewed 9 others? I know why they're bringing the interviews in today. I get it. But I think they are going through the process. And I do think that if they pull the trigger on Hafley tonight, it shows conviction by John Eric Sullivan that this is the guy. And I'm not going to judge it until I see a staff build, until we get into the offseason program, until we get into training camp, until we see what happens during coaching on the field. And then I'll make my assessment, But there's a lot that has to happen between now and then before we either fade or anoint someone. Why don't we just give people the benefit of the doubt? Because this is a brand new regime. Brand new. with Sullivan, the head coach, and everybody who falls in between. And the hiring of the staff, football is a connection business. We don't know who's in another person's Rolodex. We don't know who's in the phone of a potential head coach who they can dial in college, other NFL teams to bring aboard their staff. So we don't know yet. We don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. And shout out to the chat colleague, Collis Sari, 7503. I hope I'm saying it right. Jeff Hafley will, while with Boston College, wore many hats. He was the head coach, general manager, recruiter, and managed the department salary cap. Again, yes, there's a lot. I said this, like Boston College is not coaching at the University of Miami or FSU or Alabama or these. It's hard to recruit there. And you make a great point. And by the way, great message there, Jason, with Campanelli and Van Ginkel there. Shout out to you. I know you showed me that a few days ago, and I thought that was great. And Campanelli's another great candidate. Like he's got that leader of men alpha stuff to it. Maybe not the right time for him, but again, I think this process, the general manager hiring process, we haven't talked about. I want to talk about McDermott if it kind of changes anything, but the process for the general manager I thought was fantastic. They were convicted. They had months to get prepared for this. They identified their guy, and there was no bias. They went and they got him. They could have. Now, maybe everybody's talking about, I know everybody's talking about Harbaugh, and they could have went and done the old Dolphin thing. Guess what they would have done, Jason? They would have hired Chad Alexander, hoping that would swing Harbaugh. They would have missed out on Harbaugh, and they would have got Chad Alexander, who smells a little bit like a Chris Greer 2.0. They got a guy. I heard that interview, and I know we've heard a lot of interviews of GM hires. The way John Eric Sullivan talks is the way I believe you build a football team. Draft, develop, re-sign, right? Again, you got to hit on these guys. But let him, we talk about the coach and the general manager being on the same timeline and page. Let him get the guy that he trusts fully to carry out the vision that he has for this football team, right? Now, is Sean McDermott firing? Does it impact that? I don't think so. I think this is Jeff Hafley's job to lose. I have a hard time believing they let him leave tonight. But what people are missing the point is that you have a general manager who this is his hire. I always said, hire the guy at the top. That's the most important hire. He'll make the domino decisions. This is the guy he wants, believes in. And you know what? Sometimes your first hire as the head coach in 3 years in a rebuild is not the guy who's going to be here long term. You might even still have success, but you might have to switch out to another coach. Very possible. There's a certain type of guy you need for this job right now, Jason, because this roster, people expecting this team to compete for the playoffs next year, I don't expect that, right? So we're going to be younger. This is a certain type of job, takes a certain type of man and leader. And why wouldn't you want the guy he knows more than anybody he's interviewing as the head coach? I just think the notion that who's the best, I hate this, who's the best coordinator for the number one offense or number one defense doesn't mean you're the best candidate. It's crazy to me. People don't understand that. And I see all these reactions after a game. His stock is down. His stock is up. So what? Chris Shula's stock was down. So the next game, his stock is up because they had a great performance. I mean, it makes no sense. Again, I understand people have the Joe Philbin thing. Two different timelines, two different type of people, two different situations. I don't know. I think we said our piece on Jeff Hafley, but let's get to the McDermott thing. Unless you want to add anything on Hafley, you want to add anything else on Hafley, or
just to go back to, and I see, Big Oats 1775 mentioned something about Brian Flores and the Patriot buddy system. The whole thing in 2019 was New England South. I get that, and the problem with Flores was his inability to mesh with his staff and have the staff mesh with him. There was a little bit of a problem that developed over the last couple of years with him, that it was kind of an unworkable environment. Was he phenomenal on the field, X's and O's? Absolutely. Was he a leader of men, players kind of coach? Depends on who you ask. You know what I mean? Yeah. But there was an actual difference between him and some of the coordinators. We don't know what that would be like with really any of these guys. So there's a benefit of the doubt for a guy like Hafley until we see, oh, wow, he's bringing in this OC. Oh, wow, he's bringing in this DC. Now, Hafley is a defensive guy. So it would be really interesting to see, obviously, what type of defensive coordinator he brings in. Now, Mike McDaniel was an offensive guy, brought in a quarterback guru in Bevel. Did that necessarily work? No. So it would be really interesting to see if Hafley could get maybe a candidate that's been going around as, a defensive coordinator, make him an assistant coach, So there could be potentially a better defensive mind that comes on in that's above Hafley and let Hafley deal with all the macro aspects of coaching and not the micro of defense, So I would be very interested to see that if it's Hafley, does he bring in just, a young D-line or linebacker coach just to kind of be a placeholder title only DC? Or does he get the best defensive mind available, have John Eric Sullivan throw an assistant head coach up? Now, see what I'm getting out of there is another Packer connection, because a couple of years ago, Anthony Campanelli was the linebacker coach for Jeff Hafley under GM John Eric Sullivan, and they were a top 5 rushing defense.
I see where you're going there, son.
Because
you want Campanelli back.
I want Campanelli in the building. Like that. I'm gonna be. Clip this. Whatever in 2 years, 3 years, Anthony Campanelli is going to be a star. And I'll tell you, if he goes to Baltimore, if he goes to Buffalo, I mean, that's the type of team that would hire a guy like Anthony Campanelli, and you'll know real quick what a meathead is. And people calling him a meathead, ridiculous. Enough.
And a lot of these coaches like Campanelli, you would have to bring in a hell of an offensive coordinator. It's some of these coaches, it's who you bring, how well it's most importantly is how well do you build a staff. And that's the key here for even a Jeff Hafley. That's where Brian Flores failed. We talk about leader. Brian Flores, by all means, is a leader of men. He's an alpha, but he couldn't communicate. He couldn't keep or build a staff. You have to have all those qualities. It starts, though, with the alpha. Look, Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Sean McVay, all alpha males, all alpha coaches. That's where it starts. And Mike McDaniel wasn't that, right? And look, good on Mike. I hope Mike gets an offensive coordinator job somewhere and succeeds. But sometimes guys are assistant managers. Some guys are managers.
You bring up a real good point there with Mike. Mike's being interviewed for a few head coaching jobs, a lot of OC jobs. You know what I mean? Mostly OC jobs. Now, nothing against Mike. I'm not hating against Mike. I wish him well. There were times where I was all about him, but you know what? Sometimes things change, opinions change. I think that for the next 2-3 years, he could be an absolute phenomenal offensive coordinator. I don't know that he is ready for the next head coaching job, So a lot of teams are looking at him an offensive coordinator. Great. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Mike. But the Dolphins, this is a huge hire. This is a huge, huge, huge hire. And the general manager, who is a week, 10 days into a job, knows how important this is. If he wants to put all of his chips on a guy that he knows, what are we complaining about?
Yeah, and they prioritize clearly the GM hire over the head coach hire.
Which is what we wanted, George, weeks ago.
What we wanted.
Weeks ago.
It was the most important hire. You know how they did it? They didn't hire Chad Alexander. As I said it before, they would have hired Chad Alexander. They prioritized that. So this is in John Eric Sullivan's court. It's his decision. It's the guy he's tied with. I have a hard time believing he's going to go with somebody else. But McDermott, right? We can talk about some other candidates too. The McDermott firing. Do you think this changes anything here for the Dolphins? Because it's a head coach with experience. I could see McDermott wanting to. A lot of times these coaches go to the same division, want to stick it back to their old team. I think it's still Jeff Hafley's job to lose. Your thoughts on McDermott firing? You mentioned to me a couple of days ago, hey, look out for this. If the Bills lose, McDermott could be gone, and it happened. I think it was the right move for Buffalo. That also opens up another competition for a head coaching search. So Dolphins, another reason they might want to wrap things up pretty quickly here. Does the McDermott change the landscape for you at all?
Sure, a little bit. I mean, McDermott is a guy that had a team that was a Super Bowl contender for the last half a decade at least. He didn't get them there. So I could understand why Buffalo wants to move. Are the Bills and their inability to get to the Super Bowl solely on McDermott? Maybe, maybe not, but they're going to move on. And he has done a really good overall job in a division, winning, that division several times, having a hell of a record. So if the Dolphins want to have a conversation with him, I'm not against it. Do I think it's going to pump the brakes on the Hafley momentum? Not necessarily. So it really wouldn't shock me, and I'm sorry to hedge on this. It wouldn't shock me either way if the Dolphins say, whoa, we need to get McDermott in the building, or it's just, yeah, cool, interesting story. We're still going to go with Hafley tonight. It really wouldn't shock me either way. But if I was hoping for things, I would actually hope that the Dolphins take a little bit of time with this. I do. I don't necessarily want to see the gun and the trigger pulled tonight, because it would be interesting to see if Sullivan is saying, well, okay, we have a couple of other guys I don't want to talk to live, and I really want to pick McDermott's brain. Now, again, things like this are a two-way street. We don't know if McDermott is waiting for a Miami Dolphins call, or if he and his agent is saying, screw it, I wouldn't even go to Miami if they offered me all the tea in China, Yeah. So we don't know these things. Do we know that Hafley is waiting for the contract for the Dolphins and has no care about working somewhere else? We don't know those things. It's a two-way street. And it goes back to the Mike McDaniel hire. Ask yourself this question, everybody. What were the other options for both parties? There was only one job opportunity for McDaniel as a head coach. Other head coaches were not coming to Miami because of what they were walking into. So there were not a lot of combinations that could have happened back in 2022. There just weren't a lot of combinations. Coaches were turning down opportunities or not going through the process because the question was, well, I don't want this quarterback. Why would I come in with this quarterback? Well, I don't want this defensive coordinator. Why would you leave me with this defensive coordinator, Josh Boyer? Boyer wasn't going anywhere. So for that coaching search, Greer, defensive coordinator, quarterback, these were inherited items for McDaniel, and no other head coach wanted to inherit them. This is a different scenario now. That's why it's more interesting to me, this go-around.
Yeah, and I think shout out to the chat. Finn Sammy's in the house. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of exciting news coming up. I just got a text about a potential guest we have on Thursday as we start our draft stuff. We'll announce that here towards the end.
We got some fun ones coming up, folks. We got people in the building.
In the building.
In the building. Coming to talk with us next week.
Guys who talked to the new general manager, maybe. I don't know.
Wink. There you go.
Wink.
WW.
So you better be subscribed to the Fins Faithful here. We're going to be having the Fins Faithful War Room, our draft stuff. It's the place to be. You guys, if you're watching anywhere else, we got over 160 people watching. Come on YouTube with us. Make sure you smash that like button. Jason's birthday yesterday. Give a thumbs up for Jason's birthday in the subscription here for Jason Sonny's birthday yesterday. We've been out. I've been sick, man, for the last few weeks. Jason's been kind of a little, not under the weather, but under the weather, right?
Taking care of health business. Let's just say that.
We're back better than ever. We think we're better than ever. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Happy birthday, Jason. 5 minutes of fury. Salad Hafley head coaching experience. Our more robust resumes also tied to Green Bay would make sense to me if it was one of those two. Yeah, look, let's talk about some of the other candidates. And I think head coaching experience is vastly overrated in the process. I think your job and the job of the person is to get the best candidate, the best guy when you get in a room, right? And apparently Hafley blew everybody away. Saleh, look, again, this is a little recency bias. I wasn't a huge fan of how Robert Saleh was as a coach with the Jets. Like, I don't get the Robert Saleh love. To me, I want somebody. Yes, everybody goes back to the Bill Belichick thing, right? But how many coaches have failed and then succeeded at their next stop? Like, how many times has Sean McDaniel got a head coaching job? Josh McDaniels, and he failed every single time. But we thought this time would be different. How many of these coaches does it come up to your mind, Jason? How many coaches who've failed somewhere else then succeeded? Not a lot, right? Like, so how about we getting somebody? I know it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out because these guys were first-time head coaches with Flores, Philbin, Gase, all these guys. It hasn't worked out because you haven't hired and identified the right candidate. And this is where I have faith in this process, the way they hire the general manager, and I have faith in John Eric Sullivan. Maybe I'm blind to this, but I got a good feeling about him. I just do, and I got a good feeling about the process. Stephen Ross is still Stephen Ross, but there's things that would have happened in this process that changed for me the way they did it. I think the son-in-law is a big deal here. I think he gives them a fresh little, I think Troy Aikman, and he's in the head coaching search. I like how they brought him in. He also led the charge for John Eric Sullivan. So I do think some of these other candidates. How big is head coaching experience for you? Do you believe it's overrated, Jason?
It's important. And when we go back a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when Harbaugh was out there, when the rumor that maybe Tomlin would be available, and I've said, yes, I would love a head coach with experience. Even months ago when we were discussing this, and George, we were very upfront with the fact that we don't think the McDaniel was going to last. Like you were, I couldn't
understand how they could bring him back, but
in October,
a few days too late, but they did it.
Right. In October, sure. You can go back to shows. You can go back to tweets of mine. Yeah, I would love a head coach with experience because it hasn't worked with first-timers in Miami. Now, there's a little bit of difference lately because if you look at the playoffs, as Evan pointed out, as Vincent pointed out, 6 of 8 are first-time head coach, So there's a little bit of intrigue there. And you look at the candidacy pool, there's 10 openings, and most of them are going to be filled by first-time head coaches. So there's a little bit of that intrigue there of, can the Dolphins hit on the next really good first-time head coach? There's going to be good ones, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson. There's going to be bad ones that the Dolphins have obviously seen.
We've identified the bad ones most of the time.
The Dolphins, unfortunately, but you look at the person who is no longer there, who had a huge say in bringing in the head coach. Now, you bring in a guy like a Troy Aikman, you bring in a guy like a John Eric Sullivan, and to me, I like to pretend that there's a room where they might both look at Stephen Ross and be like, sir, you hired me to say no or yes. I'm saying no on your suggestion. And that would be great. Like, that would be great to not have 2 or 3 yes men in Stephen Ross's camp to be like, all right, yeah, let's go with this. Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. We'll go with this. Did that happen exactly with Chris Greer, Garfinkel? Obviously Garfinkel's still there, but I don't know. But you bring in a guy like Aikman, and what the hell does he care if he's going to talk back to Stephen Ross? You think he's scared of telling Ross, no, wrong guy? You bring in a guy like Aikman, he's there to actually convince the owner of what to do that could be a better move. So far, I think we're going in a better direction than the last 4 hires made by a guy who is no longer in the building.
Yeah. No. And Seahawks versus Patriots Super Bowl. Yeah, the playoffs have been great, by the way. I mean, fun. And let me tell you what, in hearing Sullivan speak, what I've noticed in this playoffs, there's been a bunch of turnovers, but it's the playmaking and the violence that team. Curtis always says this. Violence. This sport is about violence. You need, and when John Eric Sullivan said that they need violent players, controlled violence, that's what this playoff is. You see the physicality, the violence, the playmaking. That comes with risk. It comes with turnovers, but it's exciting, man. And this is the type of players that I hope we start bringing in with that. But I want to get to your a point you made and a point about the coaching search. I look at experienced head coaches. And Kadeem said 6 out of the 8 in the playoffs. Yeah, both have head coaches made it to the Final Four. Kadeem still sour on the Mike McDaniel. And by the way, the point that you made is that things are, some of the things that are different in this search, and the outside opinion is, I'm not tooting my horn. I said there's no way they can bring Mike, and you cannot hire a John Eric Sullivan or a top candidate with Mike McDaniel on board. I know we talked about, okay, let's get him on board and then let him make the decision. To me, that wasn't going to happen. They finally, what happened, it looks like what happened is they went in the room, they realized these guys wanted, the guys we want, and they could not have prioritized this. They could have went with somebody else. I don't know, Josh Williams, is it Williams, the San Francisco GM, assistant GM or scout or whatever? They could have went with him and knew Mike and got the job. They could have done that. But he listened. Ross listened to the outside opinion and made the move. The story's crazy that he was in a meeting with Darren Waller, and all of a sudden Ross walks in. I think it should have been I think it should have happened on Monday. It didn't, but it happened a few days later. But to me, those are the things that give me confidence, Jason, that even if you don't like the coach on the surface, I want everybody to do this. Go back to after we hired every head coach. How many, oh my God, we got the right guy, Mike McDaniel. Oh my God, we got the right guy, Adam Gase. Even Philbin, Cam Cameron was the hotshot coordinator, Jason, if I'm not mistaken, for the Chargers, was it? So, again, you got to identify the qualities.
A guy like a Cam Cameron, I mean, he had a lot of mileage on those coaching tires, okay? And he came in basically already pre-retired, you know what I mean? Yeah. And just
everybody comes here pre-retired.
He just kicked his feet back and said, yeah, sure, cool, whatever. And it was a joke. It was a joke back then in 2007. So no coach in this search is even sniffing a Cam Cameron 2.0.
No.
Not even close.
We're scarred. So that's the problem.
Get that out.
But there's going to be some Cam Cameron hires in this process, right? There's 8 or 9. Maybe not that bad.
I still can't sign off on that. He was that.
You know what I mean?
Folks, he was that bad.
You made a great point. There's 9 openings. The majority of them are going to get the wrong guy, but there's like 2 or 3 or 4 that are going to hit the home run, right? And that's the difference. It's not about first-time coach or veteran coach. It's identifying the qualities that you need for a head coach. And with John Eric Sullivan, I think they have the guy, I think, that can do that, right? And I know people are upset because they feel like it's the connection that they're being biased in the decision. Well, of course. Who better than the guy he knows? But let's talk about anybody else. We talked about Campanelli, right? Let's go through the list of guys. Campanelli. We all like him. He has the qualities. I think he'll be a hell of a head coach one day. Chris Shula. I don't know if he has the qualities to be a head coach. I just know his last name is Shula. All right? That's also something you don't want to make a decision on just because it'd be cool. Jason, it'd be real cool. I know your buddy Seth Levitt had a good little rant on that, and I enjoyed it, but it'd be cool. But what's funny is I told you earlier that I watched a little clip, and I was like, I don't know if he has that quality of leader of men yet, if he's ready for a head coaching job. And you got to hire a Shula, but you got to fire one too. That's the weird part. Shula, Kelvin Shepard, I like too. Kelvin Shepard is a guy who I think, Jason, he's got head coaching qualities. Patrick Graham, not for me. Who we're missing here? Joe Brady, that's interesting. Clint Kubiak, I do like Clint Kubiak. He's the 2 only offensive guys. So out of all these guys, who do you like? Any other candidates? And what does it tell you that only 2 are offensive coordinators, really, and the rest are defensive guys?
Football, it's almost cyclical with the way that the Dolphins are doing things. They want an offensive guy. They want a defensive guy. They want an offensive guy. Well, now it's the defensive turn in the rotation, I feel like. So, yeah, I like the fact that the majority of these guys are defensive-minded guys. If you mix one of them with a really, really good creative offensive coordinator, I'd be really intrigued for that. So for my money, if I had a top 4, right, and this is in no order, it's Hafley, it's Campanelli, it's Shula, it's Minter. That's you're muted, George.
Love Minter, by the way.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
You're back. But
I'm back. Yeah, I love Minter. I just wanted to jump in there.
One of those 4. No, you're all good. Yeah. I'm open to this point where I'm not going to be upset if my favorite in Campanelli is not the guy. I am fine and intrigued at different varying levels levels, but all close together with those 4 people. So if it is Minter, Campanelli, Hafley, or Shula, I'm going.
Jason, I don't know if we lost Jason or you're breaking up, Jason, but I think you're frozen. Is it my end or your end, Sonny? But anyways, Jason was talking about the.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah, I hear you. There you go. So
yeah,
your top 4 was again what? Shula, Campanelli,
Hafley, Campanelli, Shula, and Minter.
So no McDermott. No McDermott. Where do we think McDermott goes now?
You could throw McDermott in there as like an asterisk because he just became available today. Yeah. But I don't know if the process, like I said, I'm 50-50 on it. I'm literally on the fence. It could go either way. But before today happened, those were my 4 that I have absolute sign off on. I can't wait to see what these guys can do, as opposed to, oh my God, we just hired the 2.0 of Philbin or Cameron. Those are not those guys to me. Yeah. No. So that's my opinion there.
So I guess I'll play the game. You gave your top 4. I might as well give my top 4. I'll put Hafley in there because I'm a guy who likes to, when I scout, when I do things, I like to look at personalities and the way they speak, the way they handle themselves, and get a feel. He's a guy I get a good feel for as kind of a leader. I'll throw him in there just because he's probably going to be the guy. Minter, I'm going to put Clint Kubiak in there. I like Clint Kubiak. The other one could be Shula. Yeah, I'll go Shula. And Campanelli's right there too, man. Honestly, I'd probably go Campanelli over Shula. I know that's not a popular take with Dolphin fans, but so I'll go Minter, Kubiak, Hafley, Campanelli, because I'm looking for the one quality in this. I told you my biggest quality is alpha male. That's the biggest quality you got to get. And here's the biggest key in anything in leading: your ability to strike fear in guys and also have them respect you and want to work for you. Like, that's the difference between Brian Flores and what a Mike Vrabel is. Mike Vrabel communicates. He strikes fear in his guys, but they also want to follow him. That's the difference when everybody talks about Brian Flores. But, Kelvin, what are your thoughts on, like, the Kelvin Shepherds of the world? Joe Brady's interesting, Jason. Like, he interviewed already, correct? Like, Joe Brady to me is an interesting name.
Interesting name for sure. Benefit of having Josh Allen and James Cook the last several years, for sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, you give a team a guy like Josh Allen to complement with that, a running back like James Cook. They're the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL, Is that a product of the coach or is it a product of the personnel? You know what I mean? So that's my assessment there with Brady. Credit to him, or more credit to Allen. After Diggs, it didn't really seem like they'd have very good weapons, but they've made Khalil Shahir, work. They've made, their tight ends work. You know what I mean? So their targets have worked for them up to a certain point. So it's not like they're rolling out there with Jamar Chase's or Justin Jefferson type talent. They have Josh Allen. Now he obviously, you could say that he choked. You could say that he has not come up big in playoffs. Crazy stat that Josh Allen has never won an overtime game. When that came across the screen, I was like,
man, I feel a little bad for Allen. I know we should have, but damn, man,
is what it is. What it is. But again, I'm all about going defense this go around.
So it seems like that's the way they want to go. It seems like we always do the opposite. Oh, we had an offensive coach, now a defensive coach. Get the guy right. I don't care what side he's on.
All right.
Get the personality traits, the fabric. Dan Rossini tweeted about an hour ago, several organizations want to move quickly on Sean McDermott, but timing is the obstacle. A number of key decision makers are tied up in-person meetings with other candidates today. So interesting. You know what I mean? I haven't seen anything dying the Dolphins, but look, there's a lot of head coaching. There's a lot of head coaching jobs out there, and some that are more attractive than Dolphins. We got to be honest, right? Some that have quarterbacks like it's Tennessee. They got a high pick. They have a young quarterback. The Titans. That interesting. What do you? If it's not the Dolphins, what do you see McDermott kind of going? What's left out there? The only 2 candidates. Let's get everybody caught up. Only 2 hires: John Harbaugh, the two veterans, Harbaugh to the Giants, Stefanski to the Falcons, correct? So what's the other ones? The Titans, Browns.
I mean, the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders has to be the most intriguing because you got a number 1 pick. So to me, that's the most intriguing.
Yes,
but
Mendoza. Depending how you feel about Mendoza, and we're gonna have somebody on potentially on Thursday, former scout that has some questions on Mendoza. I'll get to that at the end of the show. But go ahead. Yeah. Well, the Raiders. List off the. Do you know all the? I can't remember them all. It's the Titans, the Raiders, Browns. Who am I missing? Titans, Raiders,
Bills
Browns,
now, the Ravens,
Ravens,
Steelers.
There's a lot of good head coaching jobs out there, man. Yeah, I can see McDermott. This is not. It's tough. This is not. Where do you rank this job right now? If you'd say there's 6 openings left, right? This is probably the 4th or 5th best opening, right? Let's call it like it is, Sarni, right? Like the Steelers, the Ravens, just the organizations. Now, the only thing is you got a new GM. Do you have a relationship with the GM? That's the only thing. You have the weather. Coaches don't give a crap about the weather, but they do care. You have an owner who is willing to spend and big pocketbooks, but an owner who also hasn't had a head coach for more than 4 years. We talk about he waits too long, but the longest tenure head coach has only been 4 years. With that seems to be the magical number, but I think that's more to do with the GM than anything else. But where was I going with this? Yeah, so
the ranking of the jobs.
The ranking of the jobs. This is probably there's 6 jobs left, 7 jobs left, probably 4, 5, 6. Like, would you disagree?
Raiders number 1
because of Mendoza,
and then I'm gonna go with a tie.
You think Raiders are still number 1?
Well, look what they have. They have a brand new running back. They got one of the best young tight ends in the league. They got Max Crosby. They got a number 1 pick. And it's Vegas, baby, Vegas. You know, Vegas, it's like it's a cool place to be honest with you. If Mike McDaniel ends up there, that wouldn't shock me. But
it'd be good for Mendoza because not to give my scouting report, Mendoza is a guy who desperately needs to be put in the right system in the right. He's kind of not Tua, but like he kind of has that. He's got to be structured in the right offense. I'll leave it at that. We'll get into that, but so
the Brady situation, the Tom Brady scenario in Vegas is intriguing too. Look, you have a guy like Tom Brady coming down to the field and whispering in your ear on how to play quarterback, and the coach is there with you. Yeah. That's intriguing. You just look at Tom Brady having 2 hands full of rings. That's intriguing. So that's, to me, it's number 1. 100%.
And you get the allure. You do right. You get the allure of the number 1 pick, and whatever you think of Mendoza, he's a new shiny object. I agree.
100%.
Number 1.
Number
Raiders.
2A and 2B would be Baltimore and Pittsburgh to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you got Lamar Jackson.
I'd say Ravens too. I go Ravens too.
I would go Ravens a little bit higher than the Steelers because the Steelers are a blue blood organization. You know, hell of a fan base. You got players there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you have a coach
Great front office. Right. Stability 100%. In the front office. Yeah.
And then I'd probably say Buffalo now.
Buffalo.
You got Josh Allen.
I go Buffalo. I go Buffalo over Pittsburgh. I go Buffalo.
I'll give you that.
You got the quarterback.
And then you're talking about Miami, Tennessee, Cleveland. You know,
Cleveland's probably the last for me.
100%. Yeah. But
Tennessee, some might look at Cam Ward. You know, and we talk because these guys look for quarterbacks, right? Like that's what they look for. The head coach is number 1. And I want to talk about this too. The notion that Malik Willis will be guaranteed to come here, I think it's ridiculous.
A lot of money.
If my brother's in the chat, I was a huge Malik Willis fan coming on the draft, and I like Malik. Malik as a starter, as a bridge starter, maybe. But first of all, John Eric Sullivan's got evaluated like, right? Like that. Like, do you remember? Was it Matt Flynn when Joe Philbin came down here? He said no to Matt Flynn. So one thing he got right.
Matt Flynn had 1 game week 17 that got him $30 million or whatever it was, and that was a mistake.
But we have to have the money for a Malik Willis, and 2, they got to want Malik Willis. I don't know if they do. Now, I would like Malik. I'll give you I'll tell you what. You know the guy I want to target in the trade, and that's Anthony Richardson. If I could get him for low-hanging fruit I'll tell you we got the right GM because I like those type of shots. This guy was a top 5 pick, loaded with physical talent. If you could teach him how to at least, teach him, the kind of like not Josh Allen, but to get him more accurate. Like Caleb Williams, the highs and lows of Caleb Williams in the game. Like if you can teach Anthony Richardson a little more accuracy, how to put him, get a system built around him right. I'm taking a chance on that at that position. And that's something I can see John Eric Sullivan doing. I don't know, a third. Would you give him up for a 4th or 5th round pick? I'd do it. Like you bring in Malik Willis and Anthony Richardson at that position, because this is not the year to draft a quarterback. You're not drafting one at 11. You're not. Ty Simpson's not going to go at 11. Now, a Drew Aller or a Taylor Green, I love 3rd round. One of these 3rd round picks, I think you should take one in this draft coming up. But in the top, there's not a quarterback you get taken in the 1st round. Next year's loaded at the position. There's going to be 10 guys, 11 guys I can name off, right? But again, Anthony Richardson is a guy I like. Your notion on the Malik Willis thing that it's like a guarantee if he comes here. A, I don't think so. B, what is your theory on my Anthony Richardson? Let's take a shot kind of thing. I think great GMs do that. They take lottery tickets, and he's a guy who I think got to stay healthy. But if you're not bringing him to guarantee the starter, you're bringing him to give him a look-see. I just think that's a guy I would like to take a shot at. I've been a big proponent of that.
23 years old.
Yes.
3 years in the NFL. So there's an experience factor, there's a youth factor, and there's all right, I got to prove myself factor. Very similar to Malik Willis. Going on a team, not really living up, going to a different team as a backup, and then he gets his opportunity and he's going to make a payday. Now, there's a money problem with Miami, right? So do you want to spend that much money for a potential starter bridge when you really need to use money properly elsewhere? Now, I don't know how intriguing the free agent aspect of guys coming to Miami this year would be, but you got to find some people to fill out the depth of the roster, and you're going to have to find money to keep people home if they want to stay here. So to me, I don't know if Willis is the right guy for the money, and I don't know if the Dolphins are going to be able to compete with potential other offers. But I am intrigued a bit about Anthony Richardson with the youth.
And again, Kadeem, the same Richardson who during a game wanted to take a break because he was tired. Some guys need new opportunities. I'm not saying he's coming here to be the franchise quarterback, Kadeem, but do you see what the quarterbacks look like in the playoffs? Big, physical, arm strength, talent, can play in their what I call them weatherproof, look like aircraft carriers. It's the same reason I wanted to draft Jalen Milroe. I don't know. There's a risk, and it's probably more than likely that he won't work out and he won't turn his career around. But he looks like the prototype that I need coming off the building and on the bus in this organization that we haven't had in a long time. I'm done with the small guys that our system fits. Look at Drake May, Josh Allen, big guy. Even Sam Darnold's a big guy. Look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco. It's the same thing we have here. We make average talent quarterbacks with 100 quarterback ratings because of a system. And then when you get into the big boy leagues where things change and everything tightens up and gets closer, you see the ceiling. You hit your head on the ceiling of that player. There's a ceiling with the 49ers because of their quarterback, right? That's the ceiling. If they had an Allen or somebody like that, 49ers are winning multiple Super Bowls with the talent they established on that roster up there on the defense and all over the place on running back. So Purdy got the Kadeem. Yeah, Purdy did get the Super Bowl. So did Nick Foles. He win. Those are aberrations. You're telling me you have to build a tremendous roster, one of the top 2 or 3 best rosters in the NFL. The Bills don't have one of the top 10 rosters in the NFL, I don't think, or top 5. But they have a quarterback they're always going to get. They didn't make it, right? But Drake May, look what he's doing at that position. It comes down to you can turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, but do you have the ability to make those big plays when it matters? Do you play that physical football that can translate into any weather, any style? That's what you need. John Eric Sullivan mentioned it. Multiples. Guys who can play in multiples. We want to be, I love his quote. What fast guys get slow? No, what did he say? In cold weather or whatever.
Size doesn't, or something with size, yeah.
But size, big guys don't get small. And that's true. But he said we're not going to be big and slow. we're big and athletic, right? But I see that, Kadeem, talking about Sam Darnold looks great in the system. Yeah, but Sam Darnold also was a top 5 pick, big guy. There's some talent there. Sam Darnold wasn't an undrafted free agent or 7th round pick or 6th.
He also won 13 games in 2 different franchises. Yes. The only quarterback to ever do that.
And he started with the Jets. Sam Darnold's no slouch. Look up Sam Darnold's size and how big he is and the talent he has. He was a top 3 or 4. What was he? The 2nd pick overall in the draft for a reason, Kadeem. And shout out to Eddie. Eddie, great. I saw your tweet, Eddie. I hope you're feeling better, man. Eddie has a GoFundMe.
Yes, Eddie. Everyone hit up Eddie Caput on Twitter. There's a GoFundMe. Please do what you can for Eddie. He's a great dude. Just go on Twitter.
Yes.
Make a click.
Yes,
do what you can.
Eddie, thank you so much, man. Again, everybody, thank you in the chat for joining us. What's up, boys? Great to see a show today. Yeah. Thanks, Eddie. We're glad to be back. Make guys, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Robert says you don't need a superstar quarterback. You need a good O-line running man, good defense, and a good, smart, steady quarterback. Yes, I mean, look, that's one way to look at it. But I think the easiest way is 60% of this thing is getting the quarterback. And when you have a franchise quarterback, a lot of things get easier. Your mistakes can be less. Where do you go with that, Jason? Like, how, like Robert says, you don't need a superstar quarterback. Yes, you need a good roster around you, but your margin of error can be larger, I think, with a franchise quarterback. To me, that's the way you should look for it, not trying to do it the other way, the Nick Foles way or the, Brock Purdy way. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
You need a good quality quarterback for darn sure, but most important, and this is a year I think that could very much help with it. The Dolphins have 5 picks in the top 90. That's not very common. Obviously, the last time the Dolphins had something close to that was 2020, the Tua draft. It was not a good draft, and that's on Chris Grier. Glaring amount of mistakes. Now, you want to go back to, a time like 1997 when they had a ton of draft picks in the top 90. They turned 2 or 3 of those top 3 picks into Sam Madison and Jason Taylor. Yatil Green was the number 1 pick, but he was not a bust, folks. He was an injured scenario, and he tried his damnedest to get back. So he wasn't a bust. It was an unfortunate circumstance there. But the Dolphins have an opportunity to have a franchise-changing NFL draft. So that is what Sullivan is also tasked with, is utilizing these top 5 picks tremendously. So they don't need a top 2 or 3 quarterback. You call it an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Like, there are quarterbacks who the team goes because of that aircraft carrier. And there are also teams that go because there's such a good roster that you just have to have a quarterback that is competent.
But I think the way to build it, I mean, the Nick Foles way, look, Kadeem, there's a lot of ways you can win and slice this thing. But if you're looking to do that way, or you're relying on just the roster and just an average quarterback, I think that's not the way to do it. I think the way to do it in the most common way is go find the aircraft carrier until you find them. Everything else gets a lot easier. I said it's 60 or 70% of the job. That's 60 or 70% of John Eric Sullivan's job. Find that quarterback, and it doesn't have to be in the top 5. It could be at 11. It could be at 15. That's the way you should build it. Now, there are exceptions to the rules, but you look at the past and what the guys get there, it's mostly led by the big time, the quarterback, the the quarterback, and all those things that go with it. So yeah, let's keep it nice here, William. All right.
It happens to be a day off from school, and there's snow all over. I'm a Northeast guy, so apologies about the extracurriculars.
It's okay. I'm saying build a good roster, have a great quarterback. Of course, building a good – that's the plan, right? If you build a good roster and have a great quarterback, you're going to be one of these top 4 or 6 teams in the thing. There's no doubt about it. But I'm just saying the way to do it, the right way to do it is go find the quarterback. That's the biggest thing here. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. Everything becomes easier. And if you can identify the quarterback, I have confidence in this team can build a roster, the offensive, defensive line. I mean, he mentioned, let's talk about Eric Sullivan's. He mentioned, 5 core guys. Didn't mention Tua. People are shocked by that. Tua's gone. We know that. Didn't mention Waddle initially. He did mention size at that position. Is it a guarantee Jalen Waddle's not used as a trade piece? I don't know that. But he mentioned Pat Paul, Brewer, A-Chain, obviously, Jordan Brooks. He mentioned those guys. Anything stand out for you in that great interview by Travis Wingfield?
Well, I definitely think there was, he knew what he was saying with mentioning certain players.
Yes.
And leaving certain out. Now, this all goes into how important his first 6 months on the job is, because you need to bring in a quarterback to compete with Quinn Ewers. And look, if you get to pick 87, 90, 111 in this year's draft, there are going to be a quarterback or two hanging around there. Do you use pick 11, 43, or 75 to select the quarterback? No. I think within the top three picks, and I can't wait to see what Sullivan does. I cannot wait to see what he does. Pick 11, there's going to be a guy that falls just outside of the top 10 that's going to fall into their lap, whether it's Francis Magoa, whether it's Caleb Downs. I think it might be a little too early to go wide. Oh, baby. Here we go.
I've been mocking.
I've been mocking.
Yeah.
But there's a number of guys. I mean, look, if they want to go with the defensive end, there are a lot of defensive end. Let me give you a guy, Keldrick Falk, who is a run stopper, a guy who everyone wants to know about, a guy who set the edge. You know what I mean?
Bailey,
David Bailey from Texas Tech. Yeah, no, 100%. There are 2 or 3 defensive ends. There's 2 or 3 cornerbacks. Mansour Delane. Jamon McCoy.
The linebacker, Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles. 100%.
If Caleb Down is there,
run the ticket up.
Put a rocket up your know-what and fly to the podium. He is a difference
from
maker
Utah. If they stay put.
I was doing the offensive line. I just started. But no, the kid out of UM is a road great. You put him at right. If he's there at 11, you put him at a right tackle for the next 10 years. Moaga. Boy, I'm getting fired up. But I said this statement, Jason. Most confidence I had in the GM picking players since Jimmy Johnson. Is that crazy?
I mean, but what Jimmy did was he used that trade. He was
Jimmy said, I'm going to get his lottery tickets. I'm going to get 15 of them, and it gives me a better chance.
I got to answer my boy Sam Marcou's question. I'm not going to necessarily say that Jeff Zgonina was the best Jeff in Dolphins history, but he's got one of the best last names, Zgonina.
But Jeff Wilson, Jeff. I'm trying to think of Jeff's.
Jeff. I'll tell you.
What was Cross's first name? What was Cross's first name?
Jeff Cross.
Jeff Cross. Oh, did you say Jeff Cross?
It's Gonina. But the Dolphins have a huge ability at 11 to get a game changer. Now, if there happens to be all the players that I happen to love in that top 11, if they're gone, there is kind of an opportunity. And I'm talking like the top 2 offensive linemen gone, Caleb Downs gone, maybe 1 or 2 of those top corners gone, Reuben Bain gone. If you want to trade down a bit and really compile picks, you could find a lineman later. You could find a wide receiver later in the first round. I love it. I love it, Sam. But I think this is a huge potential draft, which I think makes it a little appealing to mix with a first-year GM because of those amount of picks in the top 6 and the top 111. So if you want to call one of those top picks, the 4th, 5th, and the 6th, a quarterback roll the dice pick, sure. But for my money, you can get a dynamite corner, offensive lineman, defensive back, and wide receiver, as your top 4 selections. Look, you could double up on the offensive line in your top 5 potentially. Here's a name, Max Ionakor from Arizona State, who could be your successor to Austin Jackson or replace Austin Jackson. Emmanuel Pregron from Oregon, who I think could be this year's Armand Membu.
Yeah, you like this kid.
Hey, Pregron is an inside guard.
Yeah.
Like Membu almost was, who was a second-round pick and then escalated to a top 5. I don't know if he's going to escalate that high, but he could be a late 20s pick. If you're the Dolphins and you see Pregron there in the second round, run the damn ticket up. But I agree, Clown Prince. If Caleb Downs is there, you got yourself a guy who they were comping to Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, Kyle Hamilton, big time Earl Thomas, big time freaking players. Yeah. So this is a huge draft. This is a huge
BPA.
Huge
we go to big BPA. And I love it.
100%.
I think now I do what John Eric Sullivan says. You subconsciously build your board to kind of what you need. So BPA, that's how sometimes BPA needs. And Tom Prince, shout out my brother. Right now I'm looking at Downs and Fano. I just did look at Fano's film. I agree with you. Great athlete. I don't think he allowed a sack this year. Ability, his feet are elite. Ability to slide and kick slide. Size worries me, right? It does. He's a tackle. You mentioned Lamu, his teammate at left tackle. He replaced Fanu at left tackle. Those two guys at Utah are interesting guys, both in play at number 11. I agree. But yeah, those are names. It's funny. I was just doing evaluations on that. And we got to mention the Finn's Faithful War Room, the debut of that. Could be coming on Thursday. We're going to have a bunch of scouting reports. We're going to have guests. Guys, I'm starting to build the board. We'll come out close to the draft. I'm starting to build it. I'm starting to get into deep into players. I know Jason is as well. The Finn's Faithful War Room. It's an extension of the Finn's Faithful podcast. We got a great little intro video and stuff. Thursday could be our first show, but we're going to have you covered draft, not only free agency and everything that breaks with the Dolphins. If tonight they hire a new coach, we'll probably go back live, right? I know it'd be weird. I have my hesitations that they're going to do it during the UM game. That's kind of do you think that matters, Sarni? Like, do you think they'll do it during the UM game or
I don't know. I don't think. I mean, look, if they make a hire, the news is going to break.
Yeah.
Do they wait?
Would they wait for tomorrow?
Most of the game wouldn't be surprising.
And shout out to the UM tonight. Big game. Let's go Canes, baby. That's it. Just on that game a little bit. Everybody's picking Indiana, but let me tell you something. That big offensive line for the Hurricanes could be a difference maker. I think if they win, it's because of the size, physicality of that offensive line. And if they got to get to Mendoza. But I like that Dawkins. We're talking about Brian Dawkins, safety for the Downs. Yeah, that's a nice.
Oh yeah,
we got.
Dawkins is one of my favorite non-Dolphin players of all time.
I love Jordan Tyson. I watched Jordan. Now he's been hurt,
injury prone,
right? Injury prone. Him and the corner from Tennessee, injury prone. What's his name? It's McCoy.
Jermon McCoy. Yeah.
But let me give you should I give you my Jordan Tyson comp right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's good. There's some CD Lamb in there. Oh. CD Lamb. I like him a lot. Go get Love, the running back. What do you think, Love? The tight end Sadiq?
It was funny. Robert, really good call. He's a hell of a player, Jeremiah Love. But if there's one position that I think is the only position that they shouldn't draft in the first round, or two, you don't draft the quarterback, you don't draft the running back in the first round. So that would eliminate Love in my overall big board. But any position, you can make a case. Like any position, you can make a case for that number 11 pick if they stay put there. To me,
I want to get to Robert's question. Do you guys think there's a quarterback in this draft? Mendoza's going away.
Mendoza.
Right, and some people like Mendoza, some people don't. Obviously a lot of guys went back to school. There's the Trinidad Chambliss kid out of Ole Miss, but he's suing to come back to school. Basically, Ty Simpson. To me, the options.
The Van Wilder of quarterbacks. He doesn't want to leave college.
Boy, that money gets these guys coming back.
Or the fact they don't want to play for the Jets.
True. Dante Moore going back, which I wasn't a huge Dante Moore fan, but Ty Simpson's interesting. I think there's some stuff there I like it. But to me, he's a second-round quarterback. He'll probably get pushed up to the first round. But to answer your question, I'll let you answer it, Sarni. I think more of the middle rounds is where there's some interesting guys. Drew Aller. I'm looking physicality. I'm looking size. I'm not the armchair quarterback queen, arm strength, everything. But I think it's where the league is going off power running game and play action. You need size. You need guys' ability to run, create off script, and also, thread needles in cold weather. Drew Aller and Taylor Green are two guys I'm looking at. The draft process will move some of these guys up a little bit, depending on what round you have to get them. I don't think they're first round guys. Could Drew Aller, some team fall in love with him and because of the look of him and the arm strength and the talent? But there's few guys in this draft, I think, that have that size and prototypical size and athleticism I'm looking for. I would say Jalen Green and Drew Aller are two guys I would look out more in the later rounds. Sarni?
I agree with those names, but I do think the first 4 picks, at the very least, the first 3 picks have to be, non-quarterback. But outside of that, you see what happens. And look, do you move your 90 and 111 up if you see a quarterback? Do you move up if you see a guy that you have, your favorite word, George, conviction in? Yep. This could be a draft to find a late day 2 quarterback if you want to move up the board with their number of picks.
Yeah.
But I'm really intrigued by those top 5 picks in the first 90 to just build this roster, man.
Yeah,
I mean, you need players all over the place. So I'm just not thinking quarterback in that top 90 at the moment, unless someone just falls for whatever reason. But at 111, if your guy Taylor Green, is there at 111,
again, not a we're going to come in. There's no risk. He's the franchise quarterback. Lotto ticket shot. We're going to have plenty. Again, like I was saying, we're going to have plenty of drafts up. Finn's Faithful Podcast has the Finn's Faithful War Room this year. We're wall-to-wall coverage. We're going to have guests, player profiles. Nobody's going to dive deep into these prospects like we do. You know that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Put your notifications on. Only subscribe. Trust me. And we're going to have you cover any breaking news if it breaks tonight. Sarnia, I guess we'll kind of close it here. Is Hafley the guy? Do you think it happens tonight? How do you see this forecast?
You want me to give you a percentage?
Yes.
But, at this point, it's probably 60%. I'd say it happens tonight because, I like that 50-50 hedge that I've been kind of thematically saying today. But I'm leaning towards the rumors that it could happen tonight.
Yeah.
But I would prefer them go through a little bit of the process. So 60% it could happen, but really let's see.
I think the big question here, does McDermott change anything? We don't know yet. I haven't heard anything leaking. By the way, Anthony Weaver getting a second interview with the Ravens and the Steelers. So, hey, I would be off for that. It means we get a bunch of second-round picks, right, or third-round picks.
You get 2.
2 third. Hey, how many third-round picks do we have?
5.
I'm all for that. So I agree. I think the biggest thing is if Hafley's their guy, they're not going to let him leave to Tennessee. I think you see a lot of these things where guys, they got their next interview lined up. I think there's some urgency there. I think he's the guy they identified. Could McDermott change it? Look, I don't know. It's a big name out there. But, again, there's other jobs out there that would be more enticing. I agree with that. I think 65% Hafley gets a job maybe tonight or tomorrow at the latest. And if it happens tonight, we'll probably jump back on live, Jason, for a few minutes and give our reaction. But glad to be back. My voice is going. I haven't talked for an hour and something in a long time. I've tried to cough a little bit less. So this has been fun. We're back in action. We're back ready to go. Make sure you're following the Finn's Faithful Podcast, Finn's Faithful channel with Jason, Sardi, and I. We got some interesting guest lines up. Guys in the building we got lined up. Hopefully, we're also trying to get a player on as well. We'll see how that goes. And Thursday, we'll see if we go live Wednesday, but Thursday should be the debut of the Finn's Faithful War Room. So stick with us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much. It's been fun to be back. Eddie, thank you so much. Get better, brother. We appreciate you. Everybody, go look at Eddie's Twitter. Eddie Chappett is GoFundMe. Great show. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe and turn the notifications on, guys. We appreciate it. Kyle Pitts, Bagotes, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll be back. Any breaking news, stick with us. We're excited to be back with you guys, and we're excited to bring you guys the best Miami Dolphins content out there. So we appreciate it. And any final thoughts, Sarni?
Just this is an opportunity for the Dolphins to really take a step in the right direction, several steps, and I'm hoping that happens. And until there's blatant evidence that it's not, I'm going to give my benefit of the doubt to John Eric Sullivan, and let's see what happens tonight, tomorrow, the rest of the week.
Yep. And go Canes. Good luck to the Canes
Good
tonight.
Luck. Yes.
Hopefully they get that the U baby and get that win versus Francisco Mendoza.
I'll tell you this. Any prediction? One last thing. Whoever the head coach is, I would knock on the door of a one Mr. Jason Taylor
Oh, yeah.
to
Great
see if he
job.
wants to be part of this staff. He's got a great thing going in the University of Miami. He has coached them boys up for the last several years.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Jason's son plays for the Jets. I know, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, he lives in Miami. He coached at St. Thomas Aquinas. He's going to be a coach in the NFL. So I would say, whoever the coach is, inquire at the very least for Jason Taylor to be part of that defensive staff.
Agreed. All right, guys. So until next time, we'll see you. If anything breaks, we'll be live. We appreciate it. For my co-pilot and co-host, Mr. Jason Sarney, for myself, we're out. Stay Fins faithful, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Canes tonight. We are
Good luck, Canes.
Yes.